Hello everyone, welcome to the Globe Uplift Instagram Live after really long Learn at the rate Globe Uplift. Today we'll be hearing from Mr. Alexander DeLeon, so let's have him join us. Hello,
Hey, how are you?
how are you doing?
Good. How's everything going?
It's going well, how about you?
Yeah, very, very well, thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much for being so generous with your time. I
Yeah, of
really
course.
appreciate you, joining our Instagram Live and sharing your views with all our audience. So I met Mr. DeLeon at a school event where he had presented a talk about how his journey was through all the tech industry roles and his experiences through failures and setbacks. And I was very inspired, and I was like, I'm not going to miss this opportunity to bring you up on our account to showcase you and also help our audience know you more. So let me just introduce you a bit. So Mr. Alexander DeLeon is a product marketing lead at Instagram Asia Pac, and it's such an honor to be able to speak to you. Such a remarkable individual who's achieved so much, being at the Google headquarters, Google Philippines, and even in YouTube sales. So thank you so much for being here today. Do you want to introduce yourself more into what
Cool.
your work is around?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks a lot for inviting me. I was really happy to chat whenever students reach out. I'm always happy to kind of share more about my career and some of like the work that I do as well. So I'm on the product marketing team at Instagram. I've been at Instagram and Facebook for about 5.5 years. And the way that I would describe the work of my team is kind of twofold. So on one side, we work very closely with our product team, thinking about some of the things that we have to build, taking into account some of the unique things that are happening in the region, so in Asia. And then on the flip side, I also work very closely with our teams that are based in Asia, thinking about how we bring some of our products to life and how we grow them, get people excited about them, and how we get them to use them as well. So kind of a mixed bag of things that I'm working on now. And then in a previous life, I was at Google and then at YouTube, kind of doing a range of things. I started off on the technical side and then kind of bounced around a little bit, worked on YouTube for a little bit, and then also did some sales.
Wow, that's awesome. And yeah, we watched your TED Talk yesterday about how you were working at Google Philippines. So I'm just going to give everyone like a brief summary of your TED Talk, and then you can
Okay,
elaborate
cool.
more
Yeah,
on it.
cool.
So 5 years ago, Mr. DeLeon had presented a TED Talk
You can call me
about...
Alex, by the way. Whenever I hear
Okay.
Mr. DeLeon, I think that that's like my father. So I think Alex is just fine.
So 5 years ago, Alex presented a TED Talk pertaining to his life journey, especially about being a proud Filipino. With a dream to work at Google. I heard from the last presentation you did as well, Mr. Alex. Alex was very, resilient, and he was persevering hard to, applying to Google. How many times? The keynote.
27. Yeah,
Yeah,
27.
so he started a previous talk when I had met him for the first time with the number, remember the number 27. And we were just wondering why, but then at the end we found out that he applied to Google 27 times before he got in. So that was extremely inspiring, and that is something like a big lesson for us youth, especially in these times where, the attention span is declining and we're just, keen to just pick up the first thing and get going with it, but not like, waiting and persevering. So that's amazing. And he's also been working and like speaking for different organizations, be it TED or any tech conventions. He's also teaching different, like you give different talks about marketing and digital marketing in specific. So can you tell us more about it?
Yeah, totally. So one of the things that I would say, in my day job, I spend a lot of time kind of working in the advertising industry and marketing overall. And I would say one of the things that's kind of interesting is that, I'm kind of a millennial Gen Z-ish, I guess, like depending on how you describe it. And so I've grown up online. Online is the only thing that I know. And so a lot of my day, I would say, is spent kind of thinking about the power of online advertising, especially as it relates to folks that might be more used to traditional advertising, people who are buying TV or media or billboards outside. And so it's kind of a big part of the work that I do is just kind of educating folks on the power of digital, how you can use digital to grow your business, and also kind of why it might be better than some of the traditional forms of advertising as well.
Yeah. And something I was taken aback while watching your TED Talk was how you had an amazing life. You were working at Google headquarters. So for those who haven't watched the TED Talk, Alex was working at the Google headquarters, also working along with like YouTube sales and everything. But then he had this kind of a restlessness to, come back to his home country, Philippines, and also give back to the community. I totally love this and would love to know more about, what was the main thing that triggered this?
Yeah, it was, I would say that, actually, just like as a minor clarification, so I gave that TED Talk, it was actually almost 7 years ago. I think that they posted it a little bit late though, so it seems like it was fairly recent, but just in terms of timeline, so I moved back to the Philippines in 2013. And I think there was two parts to it. So I want to say that one part was really intentional and really deliberate, and I wanted to give back, and another part was very accidental. So essentially what happened was in 2013, I was working at YouTube. I was based in San Francisco, a really cozy life. My dog was there, and nice little flat in San Francisco. And then by chance, I was just visiting my parents who live in the Philippines. And then I found out that they were setting up the Google office out there. And it was very serendipitous. I met the country manager at the time, and we just had a couple of drinks together. And then he basically said, like, I don't know what I want you to do if you're going to come out to the Philippines, but because we're starting this office from scratch, we'd love to have someone who kind of is from headquarters, who understands the culture, who understands our way of working, and have you kind of join our founding team. And so I guess maybe part of it was because I was young and I had nowhere to be. And so I basically we were maybe a couple of drinks deep, and we just shook hands, and then decided that I was going to move home. So that was kind of the original story for actually how I ended up going home. But then I would say on top of that, one of the things that happened was that as I was home, I started to kind of get this sense that there was so much technology and innovation, so many awesome digital solutions that I was seeing that were happening in the US that hadn't fully rolled out to the Philippines. And so that was something that I think was a bit of an eye-opener for me, in the sense that there was just by making something available that we already knew existed, that had already been created, but making it available in the Philippines could have a massive impact. So one example is when I got home in 2013, we didn't actually yet have really good mapping. So if you went on Google Maps, the directions weren't that good. You couldn't really get a sense of what the street view looked like either. And that was something that had actually existed in the US for quite some time. So it was a really awesome project that we worked on in the Philippines office, where we said that we wanted to actually map the entire country. And so we started to get folks on the ground, getting those cars on the street to actually map all the streets and the sites. And then we even had folks on backpacks that were mapping kind of even the smaller walkways as well. And so that was something that was like, it seemed very obvious and rudimentary at the time, that, and even now when we look at it in 2021, right? Like anywhere you go, you can obviously map any place. You can see on the ground pictures of what that place looks like. But that type of technology didn't really exist in the Philippines at the time. And so it was a really exciting adventure for me. So when I moved back in 2013, it was really where I feel like the Philippines was on the cusp of starting to embrace digital. People were coming online for the first time. And so it was a really exciting opportunity for us to make sure that as people were coming online, there were a lot of really awesome stuff that we were making available that could help improve people's everyday lives.
Wow, that's a wonderful story. And it is something commendable to see how you gave up that kind of, lifestyle, that, comfort, and you still have this something within you to come back and actually serve your community again. and it really talks about, you know, your personality and nature of how you really value your roots and where you have, you know, come from. And yeah, I just love that. And also, for everyone who's not aware, Alex is 2020 influencer top 50,
Okay.
recognized by.
Where did you find that, by the way? I saw that you
Oh,
added
it
that
was
to
online.
my bio. Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't put that in my bio, so when you added it in, I was kind of surprised.
Yeah, we did like a bit of research,
Okay,
with
gotcha.
background. So there, in the description of the award that you received, we read about, you know, the two products that you've been like a key part of in contribution at Instagram, in your current role, and that's the support the small businesses sticker, and
Yeah.
yeah, and the other one, there was
It
two,
might have
right?
been other stuff. So there was a support small businesses sticker that I worked on, and then also it might be some stuff that I've done
Stay
on
at home.
influencer marketing. Oh, stay at home. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
so everyone who doesn't know, if you see the stay-at-home sticker and support the small businesses, Alex has been a great contribution to that. And can you tell us a bit more about it? Because it's so cool to see how the small stickers can make such a big impact, and you know, it really revolutionized the way people started using Instagram. You know, tagging their
Yeah.
small businesses to bring up, you know, amplify them online. So.
Yeah, yeah, totally. This is kind of an interesting story. Um, what happened was, so if we kind of set the stage, this was in May of 2020, and this is when I would say the pandemic was first starting to really kind of go global. At the time, it was something that was sort of only happening in China, and then we were kind of hearing hints about this in other places as well. But by the middle of March, towards the end of March, I would say most countries were kind of overwhelmed by COVID, and were really trying to respond for the first time. And what that meant for us on the product side was that a lot of the things that we had been planning to work on were essentially frozen because no one knew what the world was going to look like, right? I mean, we were kind of living day to day, so we didn't know, like, should you work on something for IGDMs, for example, or more cool stickers or stories when you don't know what's going to happen in the world in even weeks, right? And so one of the really, I think, amazing things that the team was working on was this idea of, with all the uncertainty that we had in the world, with folks not knowing kind of what the world was going to look like over the next couple of weeks, was there something that we could do on the Instagram side to help them even in a small way? And so what we essentially decided on was that there were going to be some opportunities for us to build out stickers on Instagram that could do kind of a range of things. So one was, I think, more on the awareness side, and it was more on the fun side, which was kind of these stay-at-home stickers, right? Where we were just saying, advocate for people to stay at home. We don't know what the pandemic is going to look like. It's kind of dangerous to be out and about. So that was more of kind of like an awareness play. But the thing that I thought was really exciting that we worked on that was especially meaningful and impactful was this idea that all of these small businesses that we were talking to were struggling. If you were a retail or a restaurant somewhere that was offline, you didn't have any people coming to your store anymore, right? No one was coming to your restaurant or your bar. And so we said, is there some small way that we can help these people in any sort of way that we can as a global platform? And so we started to test out this idea of building out stickers and essentially buttons on Instagram that would allow you to click onto it and then support restaurants or small businesses through ordering directly from them, or making a donation or buying a gift card as well. So it was something that I thought would actually be pretty small, but part of it was that, like, we had nothing else to do at the time, so we were like, all hands were on deck for this new project that we had. And we rolled it out across Asia Pacific. Within Southeast Asia, we had a lot of really exciting partners like Gojek and Grab and Food Panda that were on board as well. And I think it was super. I think it was very meaningful for me because I know a lot of small businesses, I know a lot of restaurants as well, and I was seeing them use this sticker that we had built out where you could tap onto it, and then all of these folks that were online could start to order from them and then support them. So it was some small, meaningful way that we were trying to help support them and then keep them afloat.
Wow, that is wonderful. And like, I love the intersection of, community service and, giving back to the community with technology. And I think you're like a great testimony to that because, all through your life experience, there's like key themes of, community service, coming back to your from where you originated, kind of replicating the same scenario and kind of making it like equal. And that is extremely insightful and like a great use of technology. It's something for good and, creating better kind of resources for everyone.
Cool. Thanks. I'm just kind of laughing on the side because I have this teacher and this mentor who's a very dear friend of mine named Miss Mansad. And she's told me that my face is really dark. So she said, please light your face. So, whatever she tells me to do, I kind of have to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and light my face. And so hopefully this makes it a little bit better. I have this trauma because, she was kind of my boss when I was in high school. And then so whenever she tells me to do stuff, I just feel like I have to listen to her. Okay,
no worries.
How's that?
Yeah. And also talking to you, it's like wonderful to hear your views on, your work that you're doing and also different things. So can you like flip back to the pages, when you were in high school applying for different universities, and then I know you went to Boston College, so but you weren't in a, it's not a conventional kind of education that you had. You were in psychology, which is of course a major part of marketing. Can you tell us more, like how was your journey through applying to Google and your internships?
Yeah, I would say that my journey in terms of work experience was that I really had no idea what I wanted to do when I was graduating from college. I was always interested in technology. I loved computers since I was young, but at the same time, I didn't actually think that I could make it a career. So when I was thinking of applying for jobs, if someone had said to me, you can work at a Google or a Facebook or kind of any sort of these tech companies, I presumed that it had to be some sort of engineering role, that I had to be some PhD savant computer programmer. And I didn't necessarily understand that you actually can be at these large companies and do kind of a range of things, right? You can do sales, you can do marketing, you can do HR operations. And so I would say the way that I fell into it was sort of, I guess, like the way I sort of fall into a lot of things is just kind of by chance, where I was working in consulting at the time. I was doing tech consulting, and the company was great. I loved the people that I was working with, but I think at the end of the day, I just realized that it was not for me in terms of the lifestyle and also just kind of that whole industry of kind of like jumping around from client to client. And so while I was at the consulting company, I was still applying for jobs. I was applying for Google as well as other gigs as well. And then sort of by chance, I just got a random email from Google and essentially just kind of got this offer. And then, I sort of dropped everything. I'd only been at the consulting company for months. So it was a little bit of a stretch where I felt that like if I left right away, that I would always look kind of flighty or jumpy on my resume. But I think at the end of the day, it was a dream for me to be there. And so, so I just kind of jumped ship and then ended up there.
Wow. That's very interesting. And also, you've really changed the view of like us youth, because we usually like stick onto the fact that you need to be like this conventional student who is into engineering, into related to like, technology things to actually make it into these big tech companies. But you've like truly shown us, how with knowledge of psychology as well, because I think psychology is sometimes underrated, but I think it's the most kind of important subject, especially in marketing, because you really need to go inside the brains of your consumer, how would they think, what would be their next step, and design accordingly. And I think that's like a key in these tech industries where the main product and consumer related marketing is linked to,
Yeah,
hand devices.
yeah, totally. And I remember actually when I was getting my first job, uh, so I was working in consulting, and almost every other person that they hired at the time was coming from some sort of like business or economics background. And on my side, I was psychology, and then I'd done information systems as well. And I remember actually at the time that the partner had sort of flat out asked me, and he said, "You're the only person here who's coming from kind of this liberal arts background. Uh, how do you think that you'll stack up coming from psychology, for example, relative to the other folks that you're with?" And I remember when I told.
Sorry, I think your voice is breaking. Yeah, better. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember at the time that like it still kind of rings true, but this idea that at the core of it, psychology is kind of a study of understanding why they do the things that they do, understanding how different folks respond to different things, understanding how to put yourself in different people's perspectives and shoes. And I think that something like that is actually applicable to almost any job that you could be into. I mean, there are very few jobs or careers in the world where you're just one single person, you're staring at a wall, and that's your whole life, and you don't actually have to interact with any people, right? So even if you're working remotely, you're still kind of working in some sort of team structure, and you're still working collaboratively with other people. And so that was kind of what I said at the time, and I think that it still rings true, which is that if you understand how to work with people, then that's an incredibly important part of being able to be successful, no matter whatever your career is.
Wow, it's wonderful to hear your views about it, because at that time, like a few years ago, when you were applying for jobs, that time it was not much of like a distinction between in tech job roles. You would either be into engineering or in completely marketing side where you only deal
Right.
with customers. And now like you start seeing like these intersection of like psychology, technology, and people coming together, like teams forming together, out of which not all are engineers. Some are giving different perspectives from a psychology term. But like long back it wasn't that case, and it was complete distinction, either technology or marketing. And I like how you were like so confident, and you knew what you wanted to do, and you were so persistent that you achieved it and you got into Google headquarters.
Yeah, I would kind of add into that I really wasn't that confident at the time. I think that it's really easy to look back now. I mean, I've now been working for almost years, but I think 15 years ago, I really had no idea at all about, um, what I do and kind of how my strengths or my weaknesses were. So I definitely wasn't confident at the time. One of the things I was just kind of laughing at it because my theater teacher has actually joined this discussion. And one of the things that I was actually thinking about when I was originally applying for jobs 15 years ago was that I was almost thinking as if I was kind of pretending to play a role, like I had done when I was in high school theater, where I was thinking, okay, this is a persona of someone who's really confident, who really has all their stuff together, who really understands how to do this job or this business, even though I really had no idea what I was talking about. And so I think at the time I definitely wasn't confident, but I was kind of putting on this persona that I thought that I was. And so I think maybe to some extent I was sort of half the battle.
Wow, I love that. It's very interesting to hear about how you kind of like chose something you loved, and kind of during your times of fear you thought of like bringing that into you. So playing a persona in a theater, sort of, that's wonderful. And I just wanted to know more about how, in your current role, do you see any potential? So with the current, two things that you worked on, two products, the stickers, do you see anything more coming up? And especially to support, now that we have like the big climate crisis, and that's like at the
Yeah.
forefront, and many people are taking initiative against amplifying either different climate sources, climate change related news sources. Like recently there was a news about how YouTube would be linked to monetization of how they will be removing climate misinformation, the accounts sharing climate misinformation from YouTube, and they won't be allowed to monetize anymore. So that was something interesting. I wanted to look more into it, into how Instagram will be dealing with it, because Instagram is like a big platform, and you know, different kind of people, different kind of accounts are established. For example, us, we, you know, we create more awareness about different societal issues, environmental issues, and our aim is just to empower youth and bring them, you know, world issues that truly, you know, matter to us youth. So what is your outlook on Instagram supporting such kind of initiatives, or, you know, what do you think would be happening in the future?
Yeah, I think that that's an awesome question. And I think, I mean, even for example, like when I think of you know the work that you're doing, and so part of the reason why I was really excited to chat with you is because I just think that the work that you're doing and the awareness that you have for a lot of these really important issues is something that I definitely didn't have, you know, when I was around your age. And so, even just to set the context right, and I was talking about this with a good friend of mine, but when I was in high school, when I was graduating and going off to college, uh, there were so many things that I think are so important today that I had no idea about. So I didn't know anyone in my entire high school who was openly gay, for example, right? It was something that I'm sure there were people, but it was just that we didn't have an environment where it was safe to be out and proud about that. We never spoke about climate change when I was in high school. Even when I was in college, it was something that was sort of peripherally a topic, but it wasn't something that people were actively thinking about on a regular basis. And so that's one of the things that I'm really most excited about whenever I talk to younger folks, is because there is that sense of advocacy, but also a sense of ownership that I think a lot of the younger folks have today that people that are my age and older never had, and definitely don't even have right now. And so the reason that I'm saying that is that I think at the core of it, a lot of the work that I'm doing is really built on helping to amplify voices like yours. So, you know, you've built a platform on social media, on Instagram. You're talking about really important issues. And so a lot of the work that I think that I have to do, that I'm responsible for, is making sure that you have all of the tools necessary to be able to express yourself in the way that feels authentic to you. And then also being able to kind of build a community as well. So I'm thinking about people that you know, are fans of your page, being able to interact with them, whether there's through stories or stickers or DMs or Instagram Live, for example, or whatever tools are available. I think that that's really the core of the work that I'm doing. So, you know, as long as there are people like you that are telling amazing stories and that are advocating for great things, then I think there's going to be a job for someone like me to help kind of build the tools to be able to share those stories.
Wow, thank you so much. But actually, what you were missing out was people like you, back when you were starting out, people like you who, you know, build these amazing products like Instagram, such a great platform for us youth, because there would be no way other than that, especially during a pandemic, to, you know, start this, because I started it in 2020 July, and it's right in the middle of the pandemic. And I'm so glad for the, I'm so fortunate to be able to, you know, voice my opinions, bring up this like huge community all over the world. And of course, it wouldn't be possible without people like you, remarkable individuals who come up on our platform. You know, we're just young students, but you truly value us, and be so generous with your time. So I really appreciate it. And moving forward, I wanted to hear more about your views on, you know, how our, you know, world is being digitalized every day.
Yeah.
There's, you know, hype around metaverse, you know, different things about AI as well. So I just wanted to know your views, and how do you think Instagram is sort of like bringing everything together? Because Instagram is sort of the heart of, you know, social media, and anything that is, you know, you really want to influence people immediately, that's like the first click is Instagram. So, you know, what are your views? It's just a general
Yeah.
question, but it's interesting to hear from you. So
Yeah. I think So the core of Instagram, the mission that we have as a company is to connect you to people and the things that you love. And what that means for different people will be entirely different, right? So some people might want to just see their friends and their family, share photos, interact with them, and that's kind of part of what really gives them um, happiness on Instagram. But what we've also seen is that there's kind of a rise in other interesting trends that are happening on Instagram. So people are loving to interact with content creators, for example. Influencers are an area that I didn't really know that much about if you had asked me maybe 3-4 years ago. But one of the things that I've seen is that content creators are really democratizing what it means to be a celebrity, right? If you had asked someone 20 years ago, there's like 5 celebrities, right? There's like Jennifer Lopez, Ben Affleck, but now people can be a celebrity in any way they want to, and they can express themselves any way that they want to online. So, I think that that idea of content creators is a trend and an industry that I'm following really closely. Another thing that we're seeing a lot on Instagram organically is that people love to discover products and they love to shop on Instagram as well. And that was something that wasn't what the platform was originally built for. So we joined Instagram in 2010 or 11. It was just static images with a cool filter, and then people were posting those online. But I think what we're finding is that over time, businesses started to come on Instagram as well, right? And people started to post pictures of the things that they were selling, and then people would DM them directly, and then potentially figure out how to purchase them as well. So, so those are 2 trends that I would say that I'm really interested in, that we're trying to wrap our head around and trying to account for and try to build. That's also kind of where the community is going as well. There's more than 1 billion people that are on Instagram today, and people come for different reasons. So we're trying to think about all the different ways that we can help help people connect with people and the things that they love the most.
Wow, that's great. And I like how you spoke about, people, come from different kind of backgrounds. And like right now, it's like there's no conventional kind of celebrity,
Yeah,
anybody who gives what they have that is unique to them and that is, bringing value to people's life. That
yeah,
is at this moment called an influencer because they are influencing people, influencing their actions, their thoughts and behaviors. I think that's a wonderful point you bring up. And I am also aware that when you were in YouTube sales, you were working with different content creators to, bring up their platform more. And that was, I think, a few years ago. So how has your journey been and what have you observed, like, especially being at YouTube, such a big
yeah.
content creating market at that point might not have been at its peak, but how was kind of the transition, the smooth transition to, YouTube content creation to, people coming up on Instagram, and what are the key takeaways that you would like to present?
Yeah, it's really fascinating actually. So I joined YouTube in 2012, and the YouTube of 2012 was fundamentally very different than the YouTube that you see today. So it was still very much, it wasn't the global behemoth that the YouTube
Yeah.
really is now. It was very much a place for, that was where you went for like cat videos and dogs and babies, and maybe you could find like full-length movies as well. So you'd watch like Batman 1 of 9, Batman 2 of 9, Batman 3 of 9. And so it was a very, very different place than it is today. But even then, I mean, and this is, actually 10 years ago, one of the things that we were seeing was that there was kind of this next generation of personas that were coming online. So the very first wave on YouTube, at least, was someone like a Michelle Phan or like an AJ Raphael, who's a really popular singer. And you were seeing that these people they weren't really coming online because there was no understanding of being an influencer and content creator. Right? People were just coming online and they were just posting about things that they really cared about. So in Michelle Phan's example, she was posting about makeup and skincare tutorials because that was something that she really cared about. And you had singers and you had comedians like Ryan Higa, for example.
Mm.
And all these people just started to share those things that they cared about. And then organically, they started to be able to build up an audience and a community around their passion. And I think that for me, just kind of being in technology for my entire career, it's been really interesting to kind of see what that evolution looks like, because you have these people that were, I mean, it might have even been like a side gig, right? I mean, like there was no concept of being an influencer, or they
Yeah.
were just kind of randomly online. And then now you have people who, I mean, if you ask them, like, their full-time job is that they are content creators, or they're, and so I think that in a lot of ways, I mean, history will tell whether that's a really awesome thing, or maybe not. But I think that at the core of it, what's been really exciting for me to see, just as a kind of a technologist, is that in a lot of ways it's really democratized entertainment. It's democratized what it means to be a famous singer, right? Like now you can be a famous singer, not having to go through the usual track of getting discovered and getting a record label to pick you up, but you can be like a little Nas X, and you can just go on TikTok, post content, and get discovered that way, right? And so I think things like that are really exciting for me, because I think that that's when technology is at its best, is when it helps to amplify these amazing voices, right? So if you're super talented, you shouldn't have to get discovered by a record label, or by some company that will help promote you, but you should look to kind of get that organic. So I think that that's kind of the direction that we're seeing this influencer space move into, right? But time will tell. It's changing every single day. The influencer space is very different today than it was when I was working on YouTube in 2012, and it'll be different next year, and it'll be different in 5 years from now as well.
Yeah, it's fascinating how everything's evolving. And you mentioned it was 10 years back when YouTube was there, set up. So that's like a really long time, and it feels so long ago. But yeah, like I have, been seeing YouTube evolve as well. And right now, YouTube's like a side hustle for so many people.
Yeah.
Previously, it was just like a part-time kind of hobby. And even, as you mentioned, cat videos, dog videos, there was just not much, matter there. It was just like here and there vague things. But now
Right.
you such an important source for, be it educational or news. It's
Yeah.
like, this big kind of platform where, you have everything that you can find. But I think what Instagram has been doing is also, commendable, kind of replicating it through the Reels feature or the IGTV. And I love how Instagram is, it promotes originality. It's so firstly, like few years back, like 4 years back maybe, when Reels feature was in there, IGTV was in there, it was hard to, be like seen on Instagram as well. But now that you have IGTV and all these features that can, make you go viral, through Reels especially, you get like so many people. I hear they got 1 million followers because they posted this IGTV, and then they, got viral, and different stories about that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely agree that you mentioned about how it's always evolving and there's no like one static thing.
Yeah.
So moving away from this discussion, I wanted to come back to your work at Google and hear more about, your day-to-day experiences, and also one innovation you were part of, that Google Person Finder. So at that time, it seems like a really big thing, because now we definitely have some, more established ways to do that.
Yeah.
But at that time, how did you envision, how was your team working with it? Would love to know more about it.
Yeah. It was. Yeah, I think that that's a really good kind of bridge to our earlier discussion, right? When we were talking about this idea that part of the kind of unintended massive benefit of me being able to come back home was that we had a lot of technology that was, I mean, it was fully baked. I mean, like when I was living in the States, for example, in San Francisco, we already had same-day delivery. We already had Google Maps, which was working amazingly. Uber was around, and all of these things hadn't quite made its way out to the U.S. To the Philippines. And so it was one of those things where when I first moved back in 2013, I kind of thought that I would be spending my first month setting up my desk and meeting people and meeting the team. But what ended up happening was that there was a massive typhoon that hit the country about 2 weeks after I arrived. And
Yeah.
kind of similar to my COVID story that I was sharing about last year when I was working on this small business sticker, is that when you go through these kind of natural disasters, what ends up happening is that the business is irrelevant at that point, right? Like you're not going to be selling ads when people are going through some sort of natural disaster.
Yeah.
And so what ended up happening in the case of the Person Finder project was that I came home 2 weeks later. This horrendous typhoon hit, and the entire country was in a state of disarray. And we were really fortunate because we already had Google Person Finder, which had already been rolled out a bunch of times throughout the US. And it was really just a matter of getting that approval to launch the exact same thing in the Philippines. It didn't even really matter where it launched, right? Because the technology could apply anywhere. You could launch Person Finder in the country. And the beauty of Person Finder, I think, was that especially in 2013, it was the very first time that we were really starting to think about how technology could help play a role in alleviating some of the problems that you see from natural disasters, especially in the Philippines, where typhoons, it's not a question of when it's going to happen, but it's if it's going to happen, right? Like, I mean, these things happen all the time. And so in the case of Person Finder, we rolled this out. And I think by the end of it, we had about 100,000 people that had listed either that they were looking for someone or they had found someone. And it was a really powerful platform where you could bring those folks together and then easily find it. I think at one point it was really the best resource that was available anywhere in the Philippines to find someone if you had a loved one that was missing, or if you had any information about your loved ones and you wanted to share that online. So it was, I think, for me, just a very big wake-up call, because the moment we arrived, it had a massive impact, and it was something that we didn't plan for. I mean, none of us had any idea, obviously, that this natural disaster was going to happen, and we also didn't know that this really simple technology of just having a platform where you can say, I found someone, or I'm looking for someone, and bringing those folks together would play such a massive role in helping to alleviate some.
Wow, yeah, and I absolutely agree with someone in the comments. They mentioned how it was truly a game changer, and I agree. It truly, like, revolutionized the way how you could use technology for such, good deed. Um, as you mentioned, it's very simple for people to just, respond, I found someone, and then another person to validate that they're okay. But I think this, like 10 years back, was like a big move and truly showed the power of technology and innovation.
Yeah.
And
Totally.
I'm glad that it's been evolving now.
Yeah, and I think that that's really kind of the core of why I love technology, and what kind of gets me out of bed in the morning is this idea that when you connect people together through technology, then generally great things happen, right? I mean, the Arab Spring, Me Too, Black Lives Matter, all of these things happen because we're able to use technology to amplify those voices, right? Because if you had had something like a Me Too or a Black Lives Matter maybe 15 or 20 years ago, then there's a very good chance that something like that would have just kind of stayed within that same community, right? Maybe it happened in a small town in Louisiana, for example, and so folks who are living in Southeast Asia would never have exposure to any of that stuff. And I think that's one of the great things that happens when you're able to connect people through technology, is that you're able to amplify all of those stories and then all of those voices as well.
Wow, thank you so much. It was so insightful, and the whole topic and theme around you and your role in technology is community going together with kind of technology, because I see sometimes we're like so focused with innovation that we kind of neglect who we're actually innovating for. We kind of forget what is the true purpose. But I think since you've been speaking a lot about your work at Instagram relating to community service and the stickers and different things, even at Google you did, it's really showing us how much power we have to use technology to at a good purpose, and it's also amplifying what we really think about the issue and what we can do in our control with technology. So yeah, thank you so much. It was great to speak to you. I really appreciate you telling us a lot more about your work, and thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for inviting me for this live session, and keep up the great work that you're doing. I'm such a huge fan of your work and your platform. So keep up the great work.
Yeah, and I will share the link to his TED Talk with everyone. and also his LinkedIn, so you can follow up. You can follow his journey, and if you have any questions, you can send it to us, and we can send it to Alex. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and Alex for being so generous with your time on a Saturday evening. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Thanks so much. Take care. Stay safe.
Take care. Thank you.